They say betrayal comes from those closest to you. But nothing prepared me for the kind that comes from a man you once looked up to. A man you welcomed into your home. A man you trusted with your children. A man you called Dad. It's been 2 years since that day. 2 years since my world tilted and never quite returned to normal. And the truth is, I haven't told a soul. Not my husband. Not my best friend. Not even the mirror. Until now. It happened on an ordinary day. One of those days where everything feels so normal, so painfully routine. You make your kids breakfast with half-closed eyes, your husband mumbles something about being late again, and you wave goodbye like you always do, wondering when it stopped feeling like love and started feeling like waiting. Waiting for something to shift. Waiting to be seen. Waiting to feel like someone still notices when you smile, or cry, or slowly start to disappear. That morning, I had no idea my life was about to change. That I'd see something unthinkable, that would rip open a secret so deep, it still keeps me up at night. Not because of what I saw, but because of what I didn't do after. You see, I always thought I knew where my lines were. What I'd never tolerate. What I'd never allow. What I'd never become. But life has this way of testing you when you're already running on empty. When you're too tired to fight, too lonely to talk, too broken to admit you're even breaking. What I saw wasn't just shocking, it was unforgivable. But what followed was even worse. Because I didn't run. I didn't scream. I didn't walk away. I stayed. And for the life of me, I still don't know why. Maybe part of me wanted answers. Maybe part of me wanted to burn it all down. Or maybe part of me was just desperate to feel anything again, even if it meant losing myself in the process. This isn't just a story about infidelity. It's about silence, about secrets, about standing in the middle of a storm you didn't ask for and wondering if maybe you caused it. It's about the kind of betrayal that doesn't just come from a husband or a lover, but from the ones who smile in your face, sit at your dinner table, and dare to touch the edges of your life like they own it. If you think you know how this ends, trust me, you don't. Subscribe to Crossing Lines now, because this is just the beginning. And the rest? The rest will make you question everything you thought you knew about love, loyalty, and the fine line between forgiveness and self-destruction. Because once you cross a certain line, there's no going back. And some truths? They don't set you free. They bury you. I wasn't always like this. This woman sitting in silence, watching the clock tick past dinner time, again. I used to be full of light. You know the type, they call us devoted. Wife. Mother. Keeper of everything no one else remembers. I met David in college. He had this fire in him, passionate, confident, funny in that dry, sarcastic way that made you lean in just to catch the joke. He made me feel seen. Like the world had stopped for just a second and whispered, "He's the one." 12 years. That's how long we've been married. We have 2 kids. A boy and a girl. They're good kids. Loud, messy, full of questions I don't always know how to answer. From the outside, we're that picture-perfect family. Tree-lined street. Modest, cozy house with a swing set in the back. We wave at neighbors. Keep our lawn trimmed. It's quiet here. Almost too quiet. Inside, it's different. The warmth that used to live in this house? It's gone cold. Dinner is always missing something, sometimes the salt, but usually. David. He's there physically, sure. But his eyes? They're somewhere else. Always on his phone. Always just handling something from work. He sighs more than he speaks now. And when I really talk, the kind that says I miss you without saying it, he nods without looking up. Or worse, he says, "Not now, babe. I'm tired." And I get it. Work is hard. Life is exhausting. But so is being invisible in your own marriage. Still, I never thought about leaving. Not once. Even when I cried quietly in the shower, hoping the water would muffle the sound. Even when I started rehearsing conversations in my head, just to feel like someone was listening. I stayed loyal. because that's what you do when you've built a life with someone. You stay, even if they stopped showing up a long time ago. And then, there's Charles, David's father. He moved in with us after a mild stroke last year. Said he didn't want to be alone in that big old house anymore. At first, I welcomed it. He was charming. Like one of those old-school men who knew how to pull out chairs and compliment a woman's cooking. He'd always been kind to me. Paternal, almost. But after a while, something shifted. He started noticing things. Small things that David hadn't commented on in years. The way I changed my hair. The new dress I wore to our daughter's recital. Even the tiredness in my eyes. "You all right, sweetheart?" he'd ask, softly. "Don't let him make you feel like you're not enough." I'd laugh it off. "I'm fine. Just tired." But he'd lean in, eyes steady, voice low, too low. "No woman should feel this lonely in her own home. Especially not a woman like you." I brushed it off at first. Old man being sweet, I thought. Until the compliments kept coming. Until his eyes started lingering a little too long. Until I noticed how he always found a reason to be in the kitchen when I was alone. "You deserve better treatment than that," he'd whisper, almost under his breath. But loud enough for me to hear. Always loud enough for me to hear. And the strangest part? For the first time in a long time, someone was noticing me. The way I stirred my coffee. The way my shoulders slumped when I thought no one was watching. He noticed everything David had forgotten. And that's when it started. That pull. That sick, slow pull between what I knew was right and what I needed to feel. I'd catch myself looking forward to those quiet moments when the kids were at school and David was buried in work calls. Just long enough for Charles to say something I'd pretend I didn't hear. Just long enough to feel seen. Desired. I hated myself for it. But I also couldn't deny how good it felt to be wanted. Even if it was by the wrong man. Especially because it was the wrong man. And looking back now, I realized that's when the line first started to blur. Not when I saw the unthinkable. Not when the world broke apart. But right there. In the soft whispers that sounded like kindness. But carried something far darker underneath. It happened on a Saturday. One of those warm, golden afternoons where everything looks perfect on the surface. The kind of day where the grill is sizzling, kids are running barefoot through the grass, and neighbors wave from across their fences like everything in the world is just fine. We were hosting a small family barbecue. David's idea, ironically, said it would be good for the kids. Good for us. But even then, I knew what good meant to him. It meant smiling for guests, showing up in body, not in spirit. And true to form, he spent most of the afternoon glued to his phone, pacing near the patio door, muttering into his headset about contracts and timelines. I tried not to let it bother me. I'd become good at that, pretending. Flipping burgers, refilling drinks, laughing at stories I wasn't really listening to. Charles was there, of course. Sitting in the shade with a beer in one hand, telling the kids old war stories that made them wide-eyed and giggly. He was always good at slipping into the cracks David left behind. At one point, we ran out of napkins. Something so small, so normal. I remember wiping my hands on my jeans, slipping inside the house barefoot, the tile cool beneath my feet. I walked into the kitchen, and that's when I heard it. A voice. Charles's voice. Low. Rushed. Not the usual warm, polished tone he used around the family. He was on the phone, just around the corner, near the pantry. He hadn't noticed me yet. "She's starting to notice," he whispered. There was a long pause, and then, "But I can handle it. She trusts me." I froze, my hands gripping the edge of the counter. My mind spinning. She's starting to notice? Who was he talking about? What was I supposed to be noticing? And worse, who was he talking to? I backed away before he saw me, napkins still forgotten. My heart was thudding. Not fast, more like the slow, heavy thump that you feel in your neck, in your ribs, in your spine. I told myself I'd misheard. That maybe he was talking about a neighbor. A friend. Anything else. But I knew. I knew. Because when I walked back outside, Charles glanced up, and for a split second, his smile faltered. Just for a moment. Like he wasn't sure whether I'd heard what he said. That night still haunts me. Everyone had gone to bed. The kids were tucked in. David was passed out in our bedroom, phone still glowing faintly on the nightstand. I stayed up a little longer, just to breathe. You ever get that feeling? When the whole house is quiet and you finally have a moment to exist without anyone needing anything. I was in the kitchen, washing a few dishes, when Charles appeared behind me. I didn't hear him come in. He just was there. Leaning in the doorway, watching me with that soft smile that used to feel safe. Still cleaning up? He asked, voice low, casual. Yeah, I said. I kept my back to him. Just a few things. He stepped closer. Let me pour you a drink. You've been working all day. I hesitated. Every instinct in me wanted to say no. But I didn't want to be rude. Not to David's father. So I nodded, carefully. He handed me a glass. His fingers brushed mine, just a little too long. Not accidental. Not this time. My skin prickled. But I didn't flinch. I couldn't. We sat in silence for a while. The kind of silence that stretches too far, that hums with something just beneath the surface. He took a slow sip and looked at me, really looked. You shouldn't have to carry it all alone, he said. David, he doesn't see you. But I do. I felt the air shift. I laughed. Softly, nervously. Charles, it's late. I know, he said, not moving. But I mean it. I stood up then, clutching the empty glass. Trying to hold on to anything that felt normal. He didn't touch me again. Not that night. But his eyes. They lingered. And something inside me cracked. Because I didn't know what scared me more, what he was becoming. Or the part of me that wasn't entirely sure I wanted him to stop. It wasn't attraction. It wasn't even desire. It was loneliness. Deep, bone-level loneliness. And now there was this lingering question I couldn't shake. Was I imagining it? Did I read too much into it? Was he really crossing a line, or was I just so starved for affection that I wanted to believe someone still saw me? I tried to sleep that night. But his words kept echoing. She's starting to notice, but I can handle it. She trusts me. And the worst part? He was right. I did trust him. Until that night. I kept telling myself it was nothing. Just my imagination running wild. But deep down, something had shifted, something I couldn't quite name. David hadn't touched me in months. Not like he used to. Not even a simple brush of the hand, a glance that said I see you. Just cold silences that filled our house like heavy fog. Like I was invisible in my own home. And that loneliness, it started to eat at me. Little by little, day by day. Charles, on the other hand, he was different. He noticed the things David never did anymore. The way my smile faded when I thought no one was watching. The tiredness in my eyes after another day of pretending everything was okay. I found myself looking forward to his visits. Even though I knew it was wrong. Even though a small voice in my head screamed at me to run, to shut the door, to protect what little dignity I had left. But when he was around, I wasn't invisible. He listened. Really listened. Like I mattered. I told myself I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was just talking. Just listening. Just not being alone. There was a strange comfort in that. A quiet warmth that David hadn't given me in years. Still, guilt crept in like a shadow I couldn't shake. Every glance from Charles felt like a spark in the dark, a spark that both terrified and thrilled me. I hated myself for not pulling away. For the small moments I lingered just a second too long. For the way my heart fluttered when his hand accidentally touched mine. I was trapped between wanting to run and being too tired to care. Charles grew bolder. It started with small things showing up unannounced when David was out of town. Remembering my favorite wine without me mentioning it. Noticing the way I'd changed my hair, the way I tried to hide my sadness. One night, David was away on a business trip. The house felt emptier than usual. The silence was almost unbearable. Then the doorbell rang. It was Charles. "I just wanted to check on the kids," he said with that familiar smile. The kids were asleep, of course. And I was alone with him in the quiet house. We ended up sitting together on the couch. Our knees touched. Just barely, but it was enough to send a jolt through me. His hand found mine. It lingered there longer than it should have. I pulled away, but not fast enough. I remember my heart pounding so loudly I thought he could hear it. That night, something happened. Not what you might be thinking, but something that changed everything. I wish I could tell you it was a clear, defining moment. A line crossed in fire and fury. But no, it was far more confusing than that. It was a look, a touch, a silence filled with things we couldn't say. And in that silence, everything began to unravel. It was another family event, one of those rare days when everyone was supposed to come together, laugh, and pretend we were still that perfect family everyone envied. The house buzzed with chatter, the smell of barbecue filling the air, kids running around, and David disappearing into his phone as usual. I had stepped into the hallway for a moment, just to grab some water. That's when I saw it. Charles, pressed against someone in the dim light of the hallway, kissing her. At first, I froze, heart hammering so hard I thought I'd pass out. And then I saw who she was. My sister-in-law, my husband's own sister. The one I had always trusted. The one I had never suspected. Shock crashed over me like a tidal wave. Everything suddenly clicked. The whispered phone calls, the way Charles always acted like he was just checking in on me, the secretive glances, the way my sister-in-law avoided eye contact when I saw her. I wasn't the only one. I was just another piece in Charles's twisted, cruel game. The betrayal wasn't just deep, it was filthy. It was a web of lies spun right in front of me, trapping everyone. My mind screamed, my chest tightened, and all I could think was, how long? How many times? I stepped back quietly, heart-shattering. I wanted to scream, to run, to demand answers, but I didn't. I didn't because, deep down, I was terrified of what would come next. Because what happened later that night made me realize something even more terrifying. I wasn't ready to walk away. Not yet. Even though every part of me screamed I should. Even though everything inside told me to run as far as I could from that house, from Charles, from that family. But something held me there. And I didn't understand why. After that night, everything changed, only it didn't change in the way I thought it would. I tried to avoid Charles. I thought if I kept my distance, maybe the nightmare would fade away like a bad dream. But he didn't let it go. He started showing up unannounced more often, like nothing had happened. Trying to corner me in the kitchen or the living room, pretending everything was normal, like I was the one causing the tension. One evening, at a family dinner, I snapped. Charles was making one of those concerned comments, "You're acting cold, you know. You need to loosen up." I lost it. I told him, right there, in front of everyone, that I wasn't his puppet. The room went silent. David looked shocked, eyes darting between me and his father like he was watching a slow-motion train wreck. That moment shattered the fragile peace we had left. David started noticing I was different, distant, guarded. But his accusations weren't what I expected. He said I was acting weird, distracted, even cold. He never once asked if something was really wrong or if someone else was involved. And Charles? His charm faded fast. He became passive-aggressive, blaming me for everything. "You're the one pushing everyone away," he said once, voice sharp as a knife. "Maybe if you weren't so cold, things wouldn't be so tense." I felt trapped between two betrayals. David's emotional absence was a hollow ache in my chest, and Charles's manipulation was a poison that seeped into every corner of my life. I was caught between neglect and control, between silence and screams. I hate myself for craving attention from someone like him. I hate that I let it get this far. I hate that I stayed silent. Sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet and the kids are asleep, I replay everything in my mind. I wonder if I'm complicit. I didn't do anything. No, not really. But I didn't stop it either. I didn't push him away hard enough. Did I want it? Did I want someone to see me? To finally notice that I was drowning? Sometimes I think, maybe, on some level, I wanted to be caught. To be rescued from the loneliness that was eating me alive. But the truth is, I'm stuck. Do I tell David? Do I expose Charles and tear the family apart? Or do I stay silent, keep the peace for the kids, pretend like nothing happened? The moral line blurs. The right choice feels like a mirage in a desert. And every step forward feels like I'm sinking deeper into quicksand. If you've ever been caught between love and betrayal, between loyalty and survival, I'd really like to hear from you. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Should I have walked away the moment I sensed something was off? Or is it harder than it seems when you're torn between loyalty and heartbreak? Have you ever trusted someone completely, only to find out they were playing a different game all along? Please share your experiences, advice, or just your feelings in the comments below. I read every single one. Sometimes, your words might be exactly what I need to finally make peace with everything that happened. You see, sometimes the most dangerous betrayals aren't the ones you act on, they're the ones you almost do. The ones that live quietly in your thoughts, in the silence between words, in those moments you nearly gave in but didn't. Silence itself can carry its own kind of guilt. And emotional betrayal, the subtle, creeping kind, sometimes leaves deeper scars than any physical wound ever could. I never told David what I saw. Not about Charles. Not about how close I came to losing myself, to becoming someone I wouldn't even recognize. But some nights, when the house is still and my mind wanders, I still see his face. And I wonder what else he's hiding in the shadows. This story isn't just mine. It's a warning. Because the lines we think we'll never cross sometimes disappear when no one is watching. So be careful who you trust, and be careful what you silence inside. Because sometimes, the biggest betrayals live in the quiet. If you want to hear more stories that push the limits of morality and loyalty, stories that reveal the dark, complicated corners of human nature, then subscribe to Crossing Lines now. You won't want to miss what comes next. Thank you for listening. Until next time.